Howdy, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have another guest. We already started talking, so we're just going to go ahead and roll into that conversation. All things UFC performance related. So thanks for joining again.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
So tell me all sorts of things, Miss Becky, about writing programming for a mixed martial arts athlete.
Yeah. So that is like the big conversation, hopefully, of today. I was just telling you about the whole team that we have at the PI. So we have 5 departments. It'll be S&C, physical therapy, nutrition, sports psychology, sports science. Ooh, almost didn't get there.
Almost.
Oh,
Hey,
got it.
we
Though.
got
it.
there.
Yeah.
So even inside of S&C, so strength and conditioning, how many different individuals, I guess, are in, and are there different specialties within, like you said, I think there was maybe 5 or so, whatever, inside that space. So how many of those different people have like specialties?
I would say a good amount. It's hard, especially when you think about S&C. It's like you got your core principles that a lot of people stick to and are pretty confident with, and then you kind of go from there. But our goal is to like just have core principles, have a systematic approach to how we program and periodize for an MMA fighter, and then get creative from there. And your creativity is kind of what makes it your own, on top of how you coach and the art of communication and relationship building. But when you think about physical therapy, I know they have several different pathways, and maybe one is a little bit more on the brain and concussion health, maybe one is more about the manual therapy and so on and so forth, but collectively they create like a great unit that if there is any issue that they can kind of come together and figure it out. Sports science, I mean, what did they not know, right? We got Roman Foman there, who's our director, and he's just a brilliant mind, and when it comes to like energy system development, he's the guy we rely on, and we take a lot of his testing and apply it in our program and stuff like that. And then Micah's our sports psychologist, and he's also great. I don't get to see any of those sessions. Obviously, they're disclosed and behind doors, but man, some of the stuff he talks about is just recognizing when you're starting to go down a road, like your thought process is starting to fixate on like fears and things you can't control, and how soon or how quickly can you bring yourself back to the present moment and stuff like that. So when you start to break down each of those individual things, it's just like one athlete can have whatever they need help with in one building.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
Like a dream as an athlete.
Yes.
Yeah. How many athletes do you guys work with at one time?
It just depends. We have 4 S&C coaches here in Vegas, and we can have up to 3 each an hour. So it's still small group training, but those 3 athletes are 3 completely individualized programs. And we have a good size weight room, but sometimes it gets a little bit crowded. So when you think about logistics and what's going on, it definitely seems a little bit more chaotic than maybe what some would think a football team would look like or something like that.
So we talked a little bit about in season and out of season, right? Or in camp and not in camp. I guess for football, people would probably most relate with like in season during football season and then off season. There is no in season, off season kind of with fighting, it seems like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For the most part. Yeah.
So how do you manage writing a program? Like there's no, like, is there a maintenance phase and then like a deload? And
we do our best. So it is the chaotic nature of this sport. And I think it's what makes it so fun and unique and exciting for me to work with. It's like, you just don't know. You'll have a fighter that's like, I'm going to take a couple months off. And then 2 weeks later, like, hey, I fight in a week. And you're like, oh, okay.
Damn.
So when you think of it in that aspect, you're always trying to make sure that you're not getting too far away from the main goal of fighting in a cage fight, right? But how we try to break it down is all those different teams, we all have our set of diagnostics. Particularly for our S&C, we have a counter movement jump profile to see where their peak power is, upper body power profile, isometric mid-thigh pull to look at their force production, and then we do a neck assessment as well.
Nice.
So it's just 4 tests that give us a really good amount of information, so that when I digest it and try to make decisions about what I should do for their program, it is exactly what they need at that moment. I don't have to guess.
I love that.
And that helps us out a lot, because then I can say, all right, you just got done with the fight. Let's say they took a week off. They come back in. Maybe I'll do a return to training phase, and that's where the most off-season-ish type of program comes in. We're just trying to get a little bit more volume, maybe put a little size on them if they can, because we know once they get into camp, it's all about depleting and or decreasing their weight as they get into it. but I would say that testing is what narrows down all the decisions.
What does the volume look like for those, like, I guess, into training? So I think what people sometimes see as volume is like 8 to 12 reps, right? Like that's volume for people. And so what does volume look like for the athlete as they're in the you said pre-training phase?
Return to training.
Return to training phase. And then how does volume change whenever they're in a program?
Yeah. So I think you kind of hit on the head. Like that 8 to 12 reps is a really good sweet spot for most of that return to training. It's really just general push and pull type of exercises, maybe some remedial or core based off of what they need. And then let's say they were going to go into more of a general prep. That would be maybe building a little bit more strength. So instead of doing the 8s and 12s, we're now going to 6 and 3s. And then we might run that for a cycle or 2, 8, 12 weeks, depending on, again, how much time we have. And then the next phase would be more of a specific. And that would be where we get into our power and our speed type of development training. And then the next step after that would usually be like an 8-week fight camp. And then that's when you get into, okay, when are you training hard? Where can I train heavy? How's everything feeling? And then you got to be really strategic about where you're placing certain things.
8 to 12 weeks seems like a pretty reasonable mesocycle.
Yeah.
But it also says it's like in the middle of it at week 4, they could like sign something. And so like week 4 looks very different than week 12.
Right.
And so I wonder, like, okay, we're not really ready, but tough. Like this is what it is. Like you have to show up next week to fight anyway. So there really are no alterations to the program. Do you go just follow into week 5, and then like just continue on as life like just happens?
Yeah, I mean, you just do your best. Like, again, say we did return to training. We're in general prep. We were doing a big strength block. So let's say trap bar deadlift, safety bar box squat, bench press, and chin-ups were our 4 big compound movements. It's okay. How can I keep using those down that road and then either making it more of like a contrast style where it's like I'm getting that strength by the bench press, and then I'm going to go into something more explosive like a med ball throw. So then it's transitioning everything until being a little bit more specific to what they need for the fight, but I'm still kind of sprinkling a little bit of what they didn't get yet. And then you can adjust it from there. All right, now instead of just bench, you're doing banded bench, so we can make it a little bit more explosive, working that strength power side. And then instead of a med ball throw, maybe it's something a little bit more speed-based, like an overspeed type of movement or anything like that.
What's an overspeed?
For overspeed would be almost assisting your movement. So if I think I have a band on top of the rack, I hold on to it and I jump, right? So it's an overspeed lower body movement. For upper body, it could be like a banded push-up, plyo push-up, where it's assisting you and stuff like that. So
very cool. I haven't really ever used those outside of like with some sprinters in the past. And I guess it makes a lot of sense to work with fighters, right? I mean, It's the exact same idea, right?
Yeah, 100%. So we're just trying to get that fast output, and when you want to work speed, sometimes just using their body weight's not fast enough. So we got to get the bands to assist them a little bit.
What do you guys use for injury prevention? Like, is there a focus with like every program? Like every time we're just focused, like this is a goal with whatever we're trying to do here. We're trying to have prevention of injury. Outside of just the lifting weights in general, but are there specific movements that are used in order to help reduce risk of injury?
Yeah, I mean, you go down the list, right? You're in a sport that you're getting injured no matter what you do. It's kind of like rugby where it's like if you're at your 80%, you're in a really good spot. Not many fighters or even rugby players at 100%. So I always like that quote because fighters tend to fixate on that. And it's like, no, can you still train? Can you do all these things? You're good. But yeah, we rely heavily on sports medicine. When it comes to their testing and their diagnostics, what they're doing is like range of motion testing. And then we can kind of see, all right, you have really good T-spine mobility, so I don't have to waste time doing T-spine mobility with you, but your shoulders and your hips are bad. So we do what's called an MMA warm-up, mobility, movement, mobility, and activation. So during that mobility, I'm attacking whatever PT has highlighted as something that they need to fix and then kind of go from there. And then within my program, maybe I'll sprinkle in some type of remedial, like a shoulder stability exercise or a core stability if they have some type of lower back issue or something like that. But yeah, we rely heavily on what PT looked for within all their testing.
It must be so nice working in a team.
Oh my gosh. I know because I before I was at the UFC, I was in the private sector. and you're just from the outside looking in like, man, I'm making all these decisions by myself, and I'm hoping I'm making the right ones and I'm doing the best I can. But yeah, having a team and knowing, it's crazy.
And then actual diagnostics, like mid-thigh pull, like is like super cool. CMJs are super cool.
Yeah.
And, like most people don't have access to those things. Like really, really good ones are really, really expensive.
Yes.
And so like I get it, but it's such valuable pieces of information that really can guide like how we should be training. Like this portion of your extension kind of really sucks, and so how can we like find a movement that's specific to that part of the extension?
Right.
But it's also not so specific like a weightlifter would be. It's like, yeah, we're gonna correct this, but like also, does it really matter for like the rotation inside of this specific like punch or kick?
Right.
No. Well, then what the fuck's the point? You
Right.
know? Like,
right.
I don't know. It's fun to think that there's so many like there's so much access, and then how do you manage that access and then dwindle it down to make sure that the individual on the opposite end is receiving what they need?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then for people who are on the outside looking in, it's like ask the questions that you need and then go for it. Like we have the isometric mid-thigh pull to look at their peak force, but trap bar, deadlift, bench, squat, they all do the same thing. And trying to understand what does that mean for MMA is kind of one of our biggest passions. So we know that there's a lot of coaches out there working with MMA fighters, and we want to make sure that they have the information. So for us, understanding what UFC fighters pound for pound, trap bar, deadlift, squat, and bench is going to be helpful for everyone. And throughout the years, we've kind of collected that and have that. So even if you don't have a mid-thigh pull, you can say, hey, you're strong enough because your bench is 2 times body weight. Your trap bar deadlift is 3 times body weight. That's all you need to be an MMA fighter. You're not trying to be a football player where you need 3 or 4 times more of that.
Damn. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a good note.
Yeah.
For people that are like interested in wanting to be a fighter, that's a really, really good note.
Yes. Yep.
I never really thought about using those metrics on the outside. Do you guys do research inside for that, like for the idea of education of the population?
Yes, we absolutely do.
Huh.
So we're constantly trying to do things where we're doing research. On the S&C side, I would say we're definitely more on the applied side, but our sports science and or our nutrition, especially for weight cuts, they're doing a lot of research on the best practices to do that. Yeah.
And like the best people that you could have to do research on.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just trying to make them better, more prepared for their fight and healthier. And so it's like, we're not doing it for us, we're doing it for you guys. And I think that's the most important thing that we can tell any fighter. It's like, we're literally doing all this so that either you or the generation behind you is going to do it better.
What are some really fun, like, stats that you found either on the sports science side or on the S&C side that were kind of like, I would have never thought that would have been a stat that actually would have been unique to a fighter or like this or maybe a specific fighter?
Yeah. Honestly, that is a great question, and I never really dove deep into it. I think one of our tests that we do for our energy systems, we do like the 3 energy systems that everyone knows. We do a 6-second alactic one. We do a 1-minute all-out glycolytic, not quite like the Wingate, but similar. And then we do a VO2 max. It's all done on the air bike, so we got upper and lower body working just like you would for MMA. And what I found is that any other athlete that comes in to do that 1-minute test does not usually stack up to MMA fighters. We've done a couple of boxers, and it's like, wow. Yeah, that's definitely more aerobic side of things, and then MMA is definitely that glycolytic. And I would say that's probably the test that most impressed me when it comes to our fighters, just because it is a grueling 1-minute all out, and not many people and sometimes not many fighters make it out without throwing up.
Have you done it?
Yes, I have. I was the test person when they were creating this. Oh, absolutely brutal. I thought I'm the fainter versus the throw up. So I thought I was going to like pass out.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
Yeah, it's I know.
You know?
The throw up one, I'm like I said, never throw up. I'm the pass out. You'll see my face red and eyes will be like, she's not here.
I'm a little bit of both, to be honest.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I will both puke and feel like I'm about to pass out. I mean, I go through it.
Yeah.
There's something weird that I kind of like about it, you know?
Right,
like,
right.
my body's doing something in order to make sure that it can supply itself with energy for this amount of time, and like this is the reaction that happens afterwards, and just the fact that happens is really interesting.
Right.
You know, like, can I take blood right now? Like, I'm dying, but can someone take blood from me?
Yeah, can you see what's going on in here? Yeah. I know. We talk about that all the time. It's really sadistic, right? We're like that looks horrible. I want to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's all of us do it.
What range of athletes come and visit the UFCPI? Are they all just like our most quote unquote most professional, or are they also our like more amateur or like new entry to UFC fighters?
I see. No, we only work with UFC signed athletes. So Dana White, that's why he built this facility. One thing that he cares about is if a fight's going to happen. And having a whole team of people to make sure that a fight continues on, they stay safe, injury-free, all this stuff is why he built this facility. And it's become into this big thing that's kind of snowballed into research and fun stuff like that. But for him, it's just like, let's keep the fights going and keep them exciting. So it's free for any UFC signed athletes.
That's crazy.
The fun part is that any one of those athletes can bring 2 training partners with them. So it gives them a chance to experience what a UFC fighter and the facility is like. And at least that's for S&C. S&C, they can come in and train with them. And we like it because it builds a more fun environment for them, right? Especially if they're cutting weight, they're late in fight camp, they need someone to bring that energy. And, you know, having the team around you helps a lot. So we get a chance to know a lot of those up-and-comer fighters, which I really like. Other than that, we get some NFL guys in the off-season, baseball, basketball, couple boxers. So
it's used for a lot of different sports.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, I'll say it out loud that those guys pay to come and use it. But yeah.
I mean, shit, I think I do. I mean,
yeah,
you pay to go. You get a full team.
Yeah.
I don't know that, because I've never worked on that side of the industry, I don't know that all teams or all organizations have that much data behind them. And maybe I'm wrong, but like, does an NFL location, like, do they provide all of these resources or not so often?
They do. So what makes UFC different from, let's say, the NFL? We'll use the Raiders since we're in town. They have their facility where it's the same thing. They have a whole team of people, but all that information stays with the Raiders because they don't want another team to find out what's going on. For us, it's really cool. I'm not for one fighter. I train them, I help them, but at the end of the day, all this data we're collecting is UFC. So it would be like as if the NFL had every single team's information of what's going on and collect it, find patterns, diagnose it a little bit more and see really what's going on. But it's so hard in the NFL. They got to keep everything so secret. But for us, it's like we get to use this information to help you. I'm not telling your opponent. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm just trying to help you get better. Like I said, make the next generation better and everything like that.
What are some trends that you've seen over the time since you've been there? Like either pro or con?
Like in what way?
In either regards to performance, concussion. Had there been a decrease in concussions over the years because of the training that we're doing? Mm-hmm. Injuries happen less often. Acute and chronic injuries. Anything like that.
Yeah. I got what you're saying. No, I honestly don't know if we can have the strong data of like injuries versus not injuries. Again, you're getting punched in the face.
Yeah, fair. Good point. Yeah.
People are trying to break your arm. So it's a little bit different than a football sprinting out and tearing their Achilles, where it's like a non-contact type of thing. Usually most of our injuries happen through MMA and someone pulling your arm off. So it's really hard to connect those two dots together. What I can say is that more and more athletes are coming to use our facility. For a minute there, it was like they didn't even know our facility existed. And it's like, this is literally for you.
Wow.
So it's nice to see that things are starting to pick up in that sense. When it comes to the concussion, I think every single department is pushing forward concussion awareness, post-concussion, either nutrition or things to do. I know our physical therapy team is working on like a whole criteria to make sure that if you have a concussion, follow these steps and we can kind of hopefully help you along to make sure that you're not just going to jump right back into sparring after you feel like I'm okay the next day.
I would imagine that happens really often with fighters.
It happens so often, and I get it, right? They're the type A personality. They got to get back into training. When they're not training, they're losing it.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard. And so we try to find ways to keep them engaged, whether they need a schedule or whether they need just to chill out or whatever they need. We'll try to find a way to make it so it's bearable in a sense. But yeah, we're just trying to, I think more and more of what we're doing as far as the S&C and everything like that, we're trying to relate it back to MMA. There's a lot of everything out there for soccer, baseball, football, but there's not been a whole lot for specifically for MMA. So when we talk about a return to training from a concussion, we're relating it back to, all right, what do we have to prepare for you to go back to training? And the same thing with our energy system testing. We used to do it on the treadmill. We're not a running sport. Let's move things to the bike. So I think our biggest trend is just bringing it back to the sport a little bit more, and that's really exciting for me.
It is really cool. I think, like, I don't know that I've seen somebody do those tests on a air bike. Usually it's on either a treadmill or on a stationary bike, right? It's either one or the other. And that's where like most of the research usually exists.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool because the sport is both, you know, legs and feet, or legs and arms, or legs and legs and feet. We all knew what you were saying. Yeah, we got there. Yeah. I mean, it is sport specific, right? It makes sense. Do you spend a lot of time doing a lot of those more dynamic movements, like a clean, and then how focused are you on the technique behind those guys? So do you do those very often, like the clean, the jerk, the snatch, and then how focused are we on technique versus like, hey, you're not a weightlifter, it's going to be okay?
Yeah. I would probably more or less go more on the variations of Olympic lifts.
Okay.
Just to pair with the conversation we talked about earlier, it's like, I don't know when you're going to fight. I need your power output now. I don't have time for you to do an empty bar progression and then slowly build weight to where it is like that really sweet spot of like the strength power. I don't have time for that, you know, so I got to go. So we'll do high pull variations. We'll do trap bar, clean pulls and stuff like that. A lot of variations. And then some athletes, especially if they came from like Olympic wrestling or Olympic judo, they're used to doing it. So I'm like, hell yeah, we're going to utilize that. And that's when I'll be like, all right, yeah. And then we're really sticklers on technique. We go for it. Obviously, if the technique breaks down, like we don't need to go anymore. But we'll use velocity-based training as well, just to make sure we're hitting the outputs that we need. So if they can't get the weight with the technique, with the velocity, don't do it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think judo players
I think so.
best at?
Oh man, I think honestly they're just best at any type of pull.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, just nonstop pulling and grip work is pretty phenomenal from what I found. But overall athletic, I think the bigger picture of the testing and programming and periodizing they get as well because they've been through it as a junior Olympic athlete or whatever they've done. So a lot of the things that we're trying to do, they're just like, oh yeah, I've done this before. And you're like, oh, sweet.
Hell yeah.
And it just makes that conversation easy when I'm like, hey, I want to test you again. No problem. Versus some fighters being like, testing again? Like, you know.
Really?
Yeah. It just depends, right? Because it can go one of two ways, right? And the timing of the testing really matters. So if I test 6 weeks out from a fight and those results suck, that's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. What do I got to do to get ready? And now you've played this whole mental game where they don't feel like they're ready for the fight, even though they don't do a counter movement jump in their fight. So what does it matter? But you know what I mean? So the timing has to be spot on.
That's
so
hard.
It has to be spot on. And or there's always a way to spin it. Like what we've seen is like, okay, maybe your height didn't get better. Maybe the force you produced in your jump didn't get better, but you did it a hell of a lot faster. And that means you're really twitchy and locked in. So we'll go down that route. But for those athletes who maybe are like, I'm not jumping high enough, they get fixated on that for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So there's always a way to spin it. And maybe I'll just tell them that they're doing it a lot faster and I won't mention that part and then we're all good. But yeah, so the timing of the testing that really matters for me. And how we look at it is one of two ways to test when it comes to that close to the fight is to say, did my programming help at all up until now? Because 6 weeks out from fight, I shouldn't have to change much. The diagnostics is probably not going to matter. I don't want to change too much in my programming. So if I'm 6 weeks out, I'm testing to see if all the stuff I did before worked. And then I'll make next camp better if it did or if it didn't. But yeah, so it just depends on the fighter.
What is the closest to the fight day will you test?
I've done a 10-5 hop test, like a pogo jump test. It's really reactive. I've done that up into the week of their fight. It's more of like a readiness assessment. And that's what I tell them. It's more for me to understand kind of where you're at than to understand like your performance readiness. It's just kind of like a checkpoint for me to see. So I've done that like up the week of. Counter movement, probably the same thing. I'll do that all the way up until. But when it comes to the mid-thigh pull and or the neck, I'm keeping that far away, right? Strength related. We should hopefully already tick those boxes before we got there. But yeah, I'm trying to do some type of assessment, whether it's using the gym aware for auto-regulation or whatever it is. It's just little touch points that you can do within training, as most coaches do, right? They see an athlete come in, and they're stretching, they're like, oh, and you're like, oh, yeah, this guy's feeling it. You know what I mean? And that's a readiness assessment right there. We just have fun force plates to do it as well.
That's a good point. If you don't have access to those things, there are many different touch points of just like, how are you doing today?
100%.
You know, and like, give me an RPE. Like, just like, man, I feel like I've won today. Okay, like what happened, right? And then you kind of get an assessment of whether this is like really a program thing, or if this is just a bad night of sleep from yesterday.
Right, exactly. You know? And then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, what do you want to do? I still want to train hard. You're like, all right. We're going for it, you know what I mean? And that's why I love certain things like the 10-5 or the gym aware, because like if you don't hit it, we can't increase the weight.
What is gym aware?
Oh, velocity based training. So that's what we use. The linear transducer, the brand that we use. Yeah.
Nice. I use the Output Sports, the capture little thing.
Yeah.
Which I like, but I do miss the tether.
Yes.
There's some there. It just provides a lot of data.
Yes.
And I don't get as much data from the Output Sport. It's still, I mean, relative like great data. Yeah. It's just not as much.
Yeah.
And so do I really need it though? That's the next question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, depends on who you work with and what you want to do. But I do like the Output because it's much more dynamic. Put on a med ball or whatever and you're good to go.
I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. Have you guys used the Output?
We have. We had a guy come in and show us how to do it. We were testing out a few different velocity-based training because of the upper body assessment we wanted to do is like a half kneeling jammer punch.
Nice.
So we used to do the landmine throw with the gym aware, and it kind of had like this weird trajectory, and they were throwing it over their head, and it's like, all right, they're punching a horizontal. So sports science came up with it, half kneeling to take out the lower body, and then we have a jammer which throws off the rack a little bit so we can throw it more horizontal.
How fun.
Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah, exactly.
I selfishly want to look at the lab, because I call it a lab, like the gym, I guess.
It's the gym. It's the gym. Yeah, no, there's chalk and stuff, everything. Don't worry, it's not fancy. It is fancy, but you know.
It's not fancy, but it's fancy.
Yeah,
because it's fancy because of the abilities of the velocity based training stuff that we use. And like the opportunity to, I would imagine, a DEXA scan is in there and the VO2 stuff is in there, and so there's some benefits there. What do you guys use for the VO2 stuff?
VO2 is like our set of zones. So just like your heart rate, we find your max heart rate. Everyone does training zones based off of VO2. So ultimately, the higher the better. But at the same time, striker versus wrestler, it's like, okay, can I only rely on my VO2? And that's why I think we have those 3 ESD tests. So we can, again, where's your weakness? Where can we work? But the VO2 max, I love it because it really sets the RPMs that we can train with. Just like, where's your VT2? Where's your VT1? I can use this watts that you did on that, translate it into RPMs, and then use those RPMs for your 1 minute on, 1 minute off.
How do I translate watts into RPM?
That's a good sports science question. They did it in Excel, and it's like this beautiful thing. I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm not going to think for too long because we're on a podcast. But
yeah, I don't know. I honestly think our sports scientist, Brett, he got on the bike.
Yeah.
Did the watts. And just looked at the RPMs and then just like kind of matched it. And I think he found some type of pattern and just kind of went from there. Or he might have gone all the way up to, I don't know what, watts or something like that, but 100 RPMs, I think, or something like that. He's kind of a beast. So
like like if you held 100 RPMs, what does that wattage look like?
Yeah. And I think he just had his camera there so he can slow it down at the end and stuff like that. So he figured it out, and I'm sure there's probably a much simpler equation, but he wanted to make sure for this specific air bike that we have that it all works out.
Every air bike's different.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true, right?
The Rogue. Echo.
Brutal. I'm so happy we don't have that.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But there's so many different variations. So I think getting like accurate information is obviously the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Have you had any like super like massive wins where you saw people that weren't necessarily performing well and you changed something in a program? And then what was the thing that you changed? And then what was the end results?
Yeah, there's been some really cool ones because we don't just work with athletes in town. We also work with them remotely. So whether they're in Brazil, wherever, we offer remote programming. So the first one I'll talk about is one of my remote guys. And sometimes you just don't know what they're doing because you're not there watching them, and you can do your little check-ins. And then after a while you realize, all right, this guy is locked in. So I got a whole year of like pre and post data. And it was like everything increased. Right, we're used to seeing these small little increments because we're just doing little touch points. But it was really cool to see the year go by and to see that 1 minute test increase in output, but the heart rate stayed the same. So he didn't cost any more for higher output. So certain things like that, it's like really exciting. And the way he fights, you're like, yeah, you need every bit of that. And it's really cool to see that within the programming it worked. Another one that's more on like the strength and power side would be our kind of movement jump test is jump with your body weight, then 20, 40, and 60% of your body weight. And then therefore we can see kind of what end of the spectrum does your velocity begin to drop. And so for this fighter, it was towards the heavier end. Plenty strong enough. Isometric mid-thigh pull was good. Trap bar deadlift was good. Chin up was good. So I was like, you're strong. We don't got to do anything else. Let's focus on power. Just pretty much did strength power contrasted with speed, and then strength speed contrasted with over speed, retested, and I shallowed that and literally just jump up. A little bit on the other ones as well, but that end piece was like jumped up, and it was really cool to see. Great timing, 6 weeks out.
That's a good
so so we can say, hey, I just want to let you know, like, one, I'm awesome. Two, I'm kidding.
I mean,
yeah. But two, like the work that you're doing, not easy workouts, the work that you're doing and your commitment to it is showing. And I think that's two really cool things is to see like, okay, I really moved the needle. And then two, to show them like, you've been consistent. I know days you come in and you're hurting and you just stick to it and just put your head down and it shows.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I really like triphasic periodization programs.
Yeah.
What kind of periodization programs or modalities are being used that you use?
Yeah, all of it.
Cool.
Short answer is all of it, right? We have our basic things. So again, we got to make sure everyone's strong enough first. And then you can kind of have fun and get creative from there. I think as long as we're sticking with that approach, we'll be able to get our fighters wherever they need to be. And then with that, it's like, all right, do I want to use triphasic? Do I just want to use wave loading if you need to get stronger? Strongman circuit, strongman style to help lose weight or anything like that. Like we want to use every tool. I don't want to be a one type of periodized, one show pony and go for it that way, right? I want to be able to grab into any toolbox I need and go for it.
What are there certifications that are required or like requested? Like we should probably be knowledgeable whenever like we're training with these individuals, or is it just like, hey, you have your CSCS, like that's probably good enough? Like, yeah. And then what like continuing education do you think has been the most valuable for you in your experience? Oh man, yeah. I mean, CSCS is always number one. SCCC, the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning, as well, is also a good one. I would be bad at myself if I didn't say the Australian side because my boss is Australian. Nice. So he's got the Australian strength and conditionings as well. And I think that's their process is pretty cool. So I think any one of those as far as like a general base is good. And here will be my plug is that actually we have a certification level 1, 2, and 3 that we put out on our website. Level 3 is all specific to MMA. Okay. The kicker is that we don't want you to get 1 and 2 first before you get to 3, right? Of course, I think. Yeah, I think. But go find it. Yeah. 3 is not out yet. 3 will hopefully be out either at the end of this year or early next year. But yeah, so I would say definitely get those general certifications. I think that's number one. Wherever you're starting low level, you want to get into it, get those certifications. Super important. Specifically for MMA, you have your big guys, Joel Jameson, obviously you got Phil DeRue, just like throwing out guys I'm thinking on Instagram that put out a lot of good content. And then we have a journal out there as well that is 400 something pages long, but it's because we have PT, nutrition, sports psych, fight camp,
post-fight, everything like that is in there, and you can chop it up and find what you need for S&C. But I think that has a lot of good information. Came out in 2017, so maybe some of the stats are a little bit different than they are now, but I think the overall idea of how to periodize and plan for MMA athlete is in there.
It's a real institution of research.
Right, yes.
You guys are really doing it.
Yeah, we're trying our best. Yeah, we're trying our best. Yeah.
Why? I never would have thought that there'd be I don't know. It's wild to me because I always we look at universities for research.
Yeah.
And I never really thought that the PI was. I thought there was just a training facility.
Right.
But it's a research facility that focuses on training specific MMA athletes.
Yeah.
And then you also have rugby athletes that come in, and football athletes, and you guys have the rugby people there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was fun.
Everybody just comes out and let's use our knowledge and bodies and figure something out.
Yeah, honestly, we love it, and I think I'll brag about it because I love it, but it's just so unique. Collegiate has its own uniqueness about it, but there's plenty of universities. The pros have their own special way about it, but it's once you've seen kind of one pro team, you might have seen them all. This one, it's chaotic. No one knows what it looks like, and we're happy to share what we do and what's going on, and I think that's why we're trying to do so much of the journal that's out and much more of the certification online stuff, because it's there's a lot of cool shit here that people can utilize and take into whatever team you're going with.
That's nice. I know that we're mainly in one field, and so scope is important, especially in our field. But in regards to the sports psych thing, do we work directly with sports psych whenever we're having athletes come in for training to alter the training ever?
I wouldn't say it alters the training. It might alter my coaching.
Okay.
Right.
Nice.
If an athlete comes in, I don't know anything about what they talked about in sports psych, but I know what sports psychology is teaching them. And one of them is anchor points. And it's just a little red sticker that we can put in the weight room. And when they start to go off track, let's say they're man, I don't know if I'm ready, blah, blah, blah. They see that red sticker and they should know to stop thinking about that and be in the present moment and just lift this weight.
Oh, cool.
So certain things like that, and the terms that we use, okay, I have my balloon. If I start to let it go, how quickly can I grab it and bring it back? So sometimes I can just say, grab your balloon, and they know what that phrase means. And so certain things like that, it's just I know the tools that they're being taught. I don't know the intricacies of what they're talking about, but I know the tools that he's trying to teach, and at least I can utilize those in the floor.
Oh, cool. Those are really fun. I'm interested to see, because I'm sure that there is research behind touch point or those target points.
Yeah.
Having these red dots around as a good reminder and how effective that is. But I would imagine pretty effective, especially if we're using it with professional athletes. There's research behind it. It's useful.
Yeah.
I never really thought about using that.
Yeah. It's just so simple, right? And I don't think we have any up at the moment, but it would be good to put them up and then you change the spots, because it becomes, I put it on my fridge. If it's there for too long, doesn't stand out anymore. Yeah. Put at the corner of my TV. Okay, now that really stands out. You know what I mean? So you got to change up the anchor point to keep it fresh, because other than that, it just kind of comes in the background.
Nice. So there's coaching, and then there's the strength and conditioning side, right?
Yes.
There's the knowledge of the exercise phys, and then and strength and conditioning, and then the coaching side. I feel sometimes, what do you think on which resonates with athletes more, and what creates more value for those athletes?
Yeah, it's 100% that coaching side. That's what it's about. It's all about that relationship building, and do you and your athlete connect, and do they trust you, right? If they trust you, and probably to the worst of them, right, they'll just follow you blindly in whatever you want. For us, I promise, guys, I'm doing what's best for you, but it's so much about that coaching aspect that sometimes they don't even care. They just trust you and you'll go for it, right? If you're too much on the science side, even though it's great to have and we love the knowledge and the creative thinking and everything like that, if you go too far down that road, you've lost them. They don't care what you're talking about. They just know that you're kind of a nerd that is trying to use too many big words that they can't understand, right? And the happy medium for me would be, okay, you understand what's going on this side, and then you can relay this perfectly to the athlete. And that's where that middle part is. It's here's all this crazy science shit that we just did, all this diagnostics, all this testing. Can you bite-size that and give it to them where they understand what is happening to them and why is it important to their sport? And if you can do those things, then I think you found that right medium. But if you can't find a way to make this digestible to the athlete and why it's important, then what we're doing won't matter because they won't want to do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I know that coaches are dynamic in the way that they coach.
Yes.
It's a requirement, right?
Yeah.
Somebody comes in, you may be a hard ass one day and you're like, maybe not today is not the day.
Yeah.
But typically, where do you live in like hard ass and not hard ass, I guess, ranges? 'Cause for lack of a better word, that's all I got. But where do you exist in this range?
Yeah, that's such a fun question for me because I would say like early in my career, you almost felt like you had to be the hard ass, especially being a female. Like you're like, all right, I'm working with football guys. Like I got to be a little bit of hard ass. And you did, right? Some athletes, you can be a little bit more of like a chill, like, human to them versus like, hey, do this. But for the most part, you had to be that hard ass. I feel like in MMA, people think that it's like these hard ass guys, but they're the most humble, nicest people in the world. And for me, I love that side. That's who I am. I just want to be me when I coach. I don't want to have to be a hard ass, which I'm definitely not. Most people look at me and might think that way, and cool. But at the same time, like I just want to connect with you, build a relationship with you, and work with you. And for most of our fighters, it's more on this end, right? Because they're already such type A personalities that instead of having to motivate them and push them, I'm actually trying to hold them back a little bit more. And that's an interesting thing to have, right? Especially if you worked with Gen Pop or high schoolers or anything like that. Usually you're like, come on. And they're like, I don't care. Yeah. My mom's making me do this. You know what I mean? And you kind of have to like switch on a little bit, be a parent. But yeah, I find it really cool here that it's like that type A personality, humble, nice people. And you can always show your hard assness through your prescription. Right? Yeah. You're going to die today.
Love you.
I love you, but you're going to die today. You know what I mean? And that's where it can kind of show a little bit.
Yeah. I have clients that will routinely tell me, like, this fucking workout. I was like, we're like hanging out, we're having a good time, we're chatting, whatever. And then they're like dying in between sets. And it's like, hey, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And and then I followed my own program for a little while. And there's days where I'm like, damn, this is what I do to people.
Isn't it funny?
Like,
I know.
I'm mean.
Yeah. I just did that the other day, and I was like, let me try this out. This can't be that bad, and I was dying.
It's weird. Yeah, I'm on a 12-week cycle right now, and it's just it's a highlight in a moment where I'm like, man, this is an insane amount of volume.
Yeah.
Like it's fun to remember what that kind of volume looks like, and then ultimately what that means when I'm prescribing to specific individuals. I think it's helpful to like sample always.
Always.
Do you still sample? Are you still training? Do you train?
I train all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, I train all the time. I'm a morning person, like I told you. I'm up usually 5:30 every day. Maybe not the weekends, but most times. Yeah. And so if there's something where it's like, it's similar-ish prescriptions, you're like, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. And then there's something over here where you're like, that looks like a fun prescription. And then you see someone do it and you're like, I got to do that. That looks totally different. And you do it and you're like, that was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. So I love doing that. And like I said, it's, we see it and we're like, that looks horrible. I want to do it. And you want to do it. You want to try it out so that when you are coaching that athlete, you can tell them the exact moment they might feel something. You can really relay and cue those things perfectly, right? Set 3 and 4, reps 3 and 4 are going to feel fine, but 5 and 6, you're going to start to feel it come on. And then after that, they're like, that's exactly when I felt it. And you're like, I know, I did it. I did it. I did it. Yeah. I just think it is so important for every coach to at least trial what they're doing.
They call them EMOMs in CrossFit or 1-to-1 ratio in sports science or even in strength conditioning.
Right.
And then there's also different time protocols like a Tabata. How often are these things used, if at all?
Pretty often, I would say. Tabata every once in a while, but the EMOMs, we like it because we set an output and they get really competitive, and it's a really good way to motivate them to do what they need to, work harder, rest more type of thing. And so another way, it's more metabolic. So if we got someone who's got to lose a little bit of weight, it's a really helpful tool to keep them, again, engaged and present in what they're doing. They can't just go off into Neverland or look at their phone because the minute's coming up and you got to go again. So we use either EMOMs or on every 2 minutes. Tabata, like I said, every once in a while. But yeah.
What? I mean, I guess there's very power output related, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why not use We're getting super into the weeds.
Yeah. No, I don't mind. I don't mind.
But,
no.
But why not use Tabatas?
I don't know. I think it just goes along with the prescriptions we've been doing lately. So if it's someone who needs a little bit more of that high intensity work, we have to balance the output I want and the recovery that they need in order to have that output. And so Tabata is a great tool, and I almost see it as like a way to get maybe 2 birds with 1 stone versus this prescription might just be a little bit more dialed in. So I think with all the testing that we have, we can be this, and sometimes the Tabata just gives us a little bit more of a broader.
Because it is over a longer period of time. Do you guys ever do 5-minute, like...
Yes.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like sports specific, like super sports specific, but like a full 5-minute round, quote unquote.
Yeah. We use a 5-minute timer all the time. Another fun one that if you don't have like the VO2 mask or anything like that, we do maximum aerobic speed. And I know there's a bunch of different time gates that people have, but we put our time gate at 5 minutes. So if you were to be on the rower, 5 minutes, get me as much distance as you can. And we'll put a heart rate monitor on them. So usually we can see their max heart rate or their average heart rate. We get the distance that they create. And then from that, we can build intervals. So let's say 30 second on, 30 second off.
That's terrible.
I want this average output because that's what you did in your 5 minutes, right? Or 140% of what you did in your 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's terrible.
Uh-huh.
That's mean.
Yes. But it's super relatable, right?
That
if you can do that for 5 minutes, you'll be able to last 50 minutes of your strategy and what you want to do. So that's one way we do it. We do non-technical shark tanks. So we do pretty much like strongman type of style. See how many rounds you can get in 5 minutes, 1.5 to 1 minute rest, and then go again.
Rough.
So yeah, non-technical shark tank. Our last thing, and this is like the closest thing we get to like actual specifics of MMA, is we do fight simulation. We'll put on their song. We'll have them walk out. We'll have one of us be the ref. We'll do all this. We'll have someone stand across the octagon from you, and it's usually your coach, your technical coach. And then we do a blend of what your technical coach wants, and then maybe some non-technical like air bike, ropes, slams. And we do 3 rounds of 5 minutes, or if they have a championship fight, maybe more. But it sounds horrible, and how we put it is we're preparing you for the worst case scenario, right? If you, for whatever reason, get into your worst case scenario of your fight, you can know you've been there before, and you know you can get back out of it. So that's one way we look at those fight sims, other than we just want to make it hurt. The second one is very psychological. You're doing your walkout. You've done your walkout 9 times already. Right? You should hopefully get the nerves, get your body to calm down. You can be a little bit more present and hopefully not so shaky.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's such a cool tool.
It really is. It's been really fun. Like, I really enjoy those.
Does everybody buy into, hey, this is what we're doing today? Like, we're like, I would imagine, like, our lights come down a little bit. Like,
we do have some lights out. We do have some lights. Maybe the lights don't come down, but we have like lights upstairs that kind of move, so it makes it feel like it's a little bit more effect. I would say some buy in, some don't. Like, we present it to them. We want to make sure that their technical coach is involved. Everyone understands what we're trying to do, and we just want to help. So if that's something you guys want to do, we're here to do it. If not, no worries. We'll just keep training the way we usually train, and just let me know if you can help. But if we can help, so yeah.
Very cool. We've had Eric Nixick on in the past, and I think it's really interesting to see, like, going to watch what they're doing, like the technical side of it. How often do people like Eric come out to the PI, if ever?
Yeah. No, I would say we see him on occasion. It's so tough, right? I know he's got a busy schedule, traveling, a bunch of fighters, so their schedule's busy, our schedule's busy. It's really hard to go there or for him to come to the PI. But I would definitely say when he's there, he's there. Like, he's saying hi to everybody, checking in with everybody, seeing what's going on, and it's just a great personality to have around when he is there. Some coaches run their whole thing out of the facility, and that's where they live. So that's really fun because you can connect on a daily basis almost.
Wow.
And then whenever we get a chance, and today's a good example, and I get a 4 o'clock off, I'm hopefully going to go over to the gym and check out a sparring or check out wrestling or just come and say hi to all the coaches and see what's going on. So we'll try to go to the gyms and make sure that we show our faces as well, because we want to see what's going on. Sometimes I don't know what my fighter trains like until I go and watch it. And then it's either they've trained fucking hard and I got to adjust some things, or, man, they train to win and I got to adjust some things.
Is it welcomed from the technical coach, or do some technical coaches or technical coaches in general like to keep everything in-house? Like, no, we're going to do strength conditioning here, we're going to do everything here, but then you're also trying to see the athlete inside your house as well. Like, how does that relationship work?
Honestly, I don't think I've run into anything like that before. I think every technical coach wants to make sure that what we're doing is going to help them. So sometimes it's like, hey, like they came in real sore the other day. They weren't able to do what I wanted them to do. What are you doing? You know what I mean? And then I got to check myself a little bit and, reflect and be like, all right, I don't get to see this side of things. Doesn't mean they're not doing it. You know what I mean? So, but no, I don't think there's anything like that where they want to keep it in-house. I really hope that there's none of that going on. And because at the end of the day, again, we're all here for that one athlete, and that's what it should be about.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had that experience, but I've heard of experiences where like the positions coach and the strength and conditioning coach are just like at odds because like this person wants this kind of program. This person's like, hey, like this either is too technical or it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, there's a rationale behind what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And so I know that happens very often with like the positions coach or the technical coach and then the strength and conditioning coach. I just didn't know how often it was happening inside the UFC really.
No, I think for the most part, again, people like Eric and the top coaches, they know that these athletes need to get better and they know that they need to stay moving. And even though they're not training on the floor, if they're training in the gym, I think they're mostly happy about it because they know it's going to get them better. And at least that's what I hope. But yeah.
Cool. Who's on the lookout? Who's coming up?
Oh man, there's just so many good fighters.
Really?
There's just like a slew of like young talent coming in. When you think about Dana White's Contender Series in the fall, all those guys get signed. We usually see them the next day introducing ourselves, and they're starting early when it comes to getting with PT and nutrition and all these. So they start to do it right from the beginning. Wow. So when you look at it from that aspect, you're like, man, if you continue to be consistent, you'll be great. And as long as injuries and life, all that kind of stuff gets in the way as well, you'll be at the top.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
I know.
Somebody's fighting this weekend, right? Or next weekend or something like that?
Yeah, there's a big fight this weekend.
Yeah, Piera or no.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Not Michelle. Why are we saying Alex Pereira?
There you go. And somebody else. I forget.
Ankalaev.
Sure. I wish I watched fights more often at this point in my life. I'm watching less and less.
I know.
What do you have a expectation of what's going to happen, or a hope, or a desire? Do you stay on the outside as much as you can?
I probably stay on the outside as much as I can. I will say I'm really excited for this matchup, though. I think Magomed's been waiting patiently in the background, and I think that it's his time. He has a little chip on his shoulder about it, and we know that Alex has been the GOAT for a while now, and it's just incredible and unstoppable. So I think when you put those two together, it's always going to be a great matchup.
From an S&C where do you see some pros and cons for each athlete? Like more powerful in some positions or not, or like more conditioned or not, between the two athletes?
Everyone would love to say that Alex is not going to be as good as wrestling or not in shape as wrestling, but he's been in the UFC for a while now. I'm sure he's caught up to that by now. Yeah. That if he gets taken down, he knows what's going on. He has the energy systems to repeatedly get back up. Ankalaev, no issues, right? He's been in the sport. He's a vet. Like he knows what's going to happen in there, and he has his strategy, I'm sure, and we'll push that forward as much as he can.
Do you guys do any testing with people on the floor? I don't know. This is super sport, super specific and not really applicable. But I don't know.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
If can we test even just heart rate? Like if I'm looking at if I could see somebody's VO2 max, so I know that there are masks that are transportable. To see somebody on the floor, in a jiu-jitsu position, doing jiu-jitsu work for an hour and see kind of what that output is, and then how do you replicate that output time and time again to increase performance over time? Is that something that's ever
Yeah, we're digging into it. It's been something that we've been missing, is that big technical side of understanding of what does jiu-jitsu do, what does wrestling do, what does sparring do, and how does that affect each individual, which is the harder part, right? Yeah. So right now I'm wearing a Garmin watch. This is something that we're recommending to our athletes because it comes with a heart rate monitor. And then Garmin has a back end to it that gives us all the data from whatever training session they have. Nice. So it's a way for us to get some type of training load and see what's going on. One test that we do, which is super specific to takedown ability, is we do a repeat sled sprint. We do 10 of them, 6 seconds, as much distance as you can in those 6 seconds. We see the decrement that happens with each 10 rep. We have a mobile device for the mask, heart rate, and then we have the NIRS, where you can see the blood oxygenation level as well. So we can see where are they depleting at what time and stuff like that. But that's the most specific we got. I think we tried to do a 6 second like heavy bag, and the mask and everything just moved too much. Yeah, I was a dummy for that one as well.
Being a dummy is kind of fun.
Oh, I love being a dummy. Yeah. And then the fighters can be like, yeah, you were dying. I was like, I know I was. I tried my best. I'm like throwing punches like this. I'm kidding now.
6 seconds is a lot. You don't get it.
10 times, come on.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just, we can get, I don't know, like there's sometimes it's like, this is all, like this is now too sport specific and does this really matter?
No.
And then like in like from an S&C standpoint, like, hey, like I know in research, like we can use a specific like pattern of movement that like a squat and then a heavy back squat into a jump, which does apply. So maybe this is not my best example, but if I get super sport specific, where it's maybe no longer a box jump, but now it's a bear crawl for whatever reason.
I
play with me for a moment.
Yeah.
Now does that really matter? Like, do I really need to be testing these things?
Right.
So it does become like overly nuanced, I guess, to some degree.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting to me.
It's still interesting. Like sports specificity is something that research always goes into. What is the transfer of this squat or this jump to their kicks and their takedowns, right? And we know that there is. But to a fighter's eye, it's like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't lift someone that's 225. I'm 155 weight class. You know what I mean? So it's like, what does it matter? And I think, again, when we talked about that coach and that science, you should be able to put those together and tell them why it matters and where they'll be bought into it. But yeah, we really don't get too much specific as far as like, hey, get on the ground and crawl, or, you know, do these moves, jiu-jitsu moves and stuff like that, and, you know, see what the output is. But you know, there's time and place for everything. And again, if you're working with the athlete that might need to see that transfer over squat into like an actual sled sprawl or takedown or something like that, then it shows them like, all right, whatever legs we use or the muscles that we use to drive that bar up is the same thing that's driving this way. It's just in different vectors. So we'll do it if we need to, but for the most part, we try to stay in our realm and make sure that whatever we're doing is based off of either their diagnostics or based off of the core principles that we have.
Will squatting make me kick harder?
Always. Right. Exactly. Always. I'll just say that all day. Always. Yeah. Exactly. I love it.
Does benching make me punch harder?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I always say that we're increasing your ceiling, right? If you can have a higher bench, we're increasing your ceiling for that power output. So that's all these strengths are doing, right? Again, we don't have to, right? Once we get strong enough, we're done. And we know what that looks like for MMA. But if I can increase your ceiling a little bit more, I know that power and that speed output is going to go up as well if we train it correctly and periodize it right.
I wanted to see the time.
Oh.
So athlete recovery, I know we didn't get super into that. Like we did, but not really. What do you like? How much outside of the diagnostics? What are you guys doing to help understand or maintain or deal with athlete maintenance or athlete recovery? So like, are there tools that you guys use in-house to help with that?
Yeah, for sure. We have cold plunge, hot tub, all the usual cryotherapy, the red light therapy. A lot of people still use manual physical therapy as well as one of the biggest recoveries, Normatec. Breathing, we try to educate a lot on breathing and how you can upregulate and downregulate your body. But yeah, we use all of it. And depending on where they're struggling, if it's sleep, then it's something where it's like, okay, let's get breathing in there, let's get nutrition in there and see if there's any other supplements that they can help them with sleep. Maybe we'll do the hot or warm at night to help with the cortisol levels within your body. We'll do the cold in the morning to, again, help regulate the cortisol to make sure that the sleep and wake cycle are right on point. So certain things like that, like we try to educate as much as possible. But for the most part, athletes know that recovery is important. And so it's more sometimes turns into like a hangout. Let's hang out in the cold plunge and see how long someone can go in there, stuff like that. But we do our best to make sure that we educate to, like, right, if we're doing a heavy lifting session and we're trying to really make some gains, don't go in the cold plunge after me. right? Yeah. We want to make sure we don't dampen those. So little pieces of education and nuggets like that, we really try to influence as much as we can.
Or do, right? I mean I've always thought about this, right? Like, could you, if I'm training for performance,
right?
I want to stunt hypertrophy.
Boom.
I can just jump into a pool,
100%,
maintain my weight, ish,
yeah,
and still have increase in performance.
100%, right? If we're trying to mitigate hypertrophy for someone that looks at weights and just gain it, we definitely have that. Like, go in the cold plunge, right? So it all depends on that person, what case they are. But if we got someone who's already light for the weight class, don't do
that. Do not.
Don't do that. Yeah,
whoever you are.
So we'll make sure that we educate. And same thing on the PT side, right? If they're coming back from a rehab injury or something like that, it's most likely like we want that soreness and things to sit in there. So don't do it. And they're really good at making sure that we educate them on when and when not to do those things.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Not got to make sure they follow through.
Yeah, that's all it is. And that's the hardest part, right? Holding their hand and making sure. And I know that's something that nutrition deals with a lot as well.
I would imagine. Oh, my God. That's a whole different conversation. That's a tough one.
That's tough. I commend those guys so much because, someone could not follow the plan at all. And it comes fight week, they still have to help them out and figure out a way to get them to make weight. Yeah. And, and they're just like, we're going to get you there. No, don't worry. And I'm going to enjoy you struggling. I'm kidding.
Ice chips.
Yeah.
All you get all week.
I'm kidding. Worst. But I'm sure that's so brutal.
It's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be really hard.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. No, this was awesome. Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah, of course.
Plug, promote anything you want?
No, I mean, Becky Summers, we have a whole team at the UFCPI, so feel free to follow us on Instagram. We put as much out there as we can. All the information and anything like that, feel free to reach out if you need anything as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Love y'all. Bye.